Good evening, everyone. I'm here and sorry to keep you waiting. I'll let Shweta start.
No problem, Vinita. So
Yeah.
good evening, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to this introductory session of the Fun with Fermented Foods e-learning course. My name is Shweta Gupta. I'm from Team Wellcure, and I'm going to be hosting today's session. So before we begin with this session, I would like to take you through some important pointers to ensure that the flow of the session goes uninterrupted. I'd request all of you to keep yourself on mute and keep your phones on silent. And for any communication that may be required, we'll be using the chat box. I'll also will give you a chance to ask questions from Vinita, where we'll request you to stick to the topic. And since the participants, the number is quite big, I'd request you to please stick to the topic and ask relevant questions related to the today's session. Take notes if that helps for future reference. So I hope we'll all keep these pointers in mind to ensure that the session goes undisturbed. So for today's session, this is what the flow is going to be like. So we have Vinita here with us, who's the program expert. She's going to make a presentation where she'll be talking about what fermentation is and some important tips to add fermented foods in your diet. Karishma, can you please keep all the participants on mute? Thanks. Yeah, and then there is the most exciting part of the session is the recipe demo. We'll be sharing with you a video of one of the recipes from the e-learning course. So not only you'll get the recipe, you will also get an idea of how the recipe videos are in this course. And after this, we'll share the details of the e-learning course and let the session be open to any questions that you may have regarding the course or about the topics covered in today's session. So that's what the session is going to be all about. So now I'll take this opportunity to introduce Vinita. She needs no introduction, but I'll probably make a quick attempt. So she is a certified plant-based nutritionist, somebody who's very passionate about sharing and educating her knowledge about plant-based lifestyle with people. And as I understand, she has already curated multiple courses with Wellcare. Also, she's partnered with us to she's designed courses on dairy free, she's designed courses on plant-based Indian cooking, and of course Fun with Fermented Foods is one of our top selling courses with Vinita. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today, Vinita. I welcome you, and with this I hand over the session to you.
Yes. So thank you, Shweta, for that introduction. I'm just going to, on the onset, say that I am a little down with a cold. I'm going to try my best to make this session like any other. But if I'm not at my most energetic self, it's because that I'm just letting the cold play itself out. So welcome to everyone. I'm very excited to have so many of you here with an interest for fermented foods. I like seeing people's faces. So without feeling shy about what your background is, how you're dressed, how your hair is, it would be nice to say a quick hi to whoever's here. Hello. So lovely to see so many people. I think this is the only thing that's keeping me going, doing these online sessions, is to see people on the other end. When I see black screens, it doesn't motivate me at all because I don't know who I'm talking to. So great, let's get started, and we will have a Q&A when you can ask me all your questions. All right, let's begin. I need a screen share enabled, please.
Yeah, so I've made you the co-host, and you'll be able to share the screen now.
All right, perfect. Just give me a minute. All right, here we go. There are people in the waiting room if you want to let them in. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, we will let them in.
All right. So this is my name, and that's my simple motto, which is making healthy simple. So here I've partnered with WellCure to bring to you the Fun with Fermented course. Shweta has already gone through these points with you about keeping your phones on silent, taking notes, Q&A in chat, staying on topic, and keeping the camera on is my request. This is my background in terms of training. These are some of the offerings that I have. I work with people on a one-on-one basis for weight loss, for disease prevention, and restoring health for lifestyle diseases, as well as hormonal and autoimmune conditions. I have the Leaf E Academy, which has courses like the Fun with Fermented course and Everyday Dairy-Free Delights. I also have every month do-it-yourself program, which is the Juice Cleanse. The next one that we have is on July 9th, that weekend, 9th, 10th, 11th. So if you'd like, you can contact me separately for that. And I also conduct workshops, seminars, different kind of on different type of topics for individuals and corporates. And just to share with you, this was my picture a few years ago, and this is my picture a couple of years ago. Being plant-based has greatly brought back a lot of energy, a lot more vitality, and a lot more lightness in my life. I did not turn to a plant-based diet with any particular health conditions, but the health benefits that I got were a great big bonus. So the agenda today is what is fermentation, how fermented foods and gut health are connected, fermented foods and pickles, what's the difference, and how to add them into our diet, what are the simple ways of making them at home, and then of course the recipe demo. So we're going to talk about fermented foods since that's the topic. So basically it's a simple thing that we've all been aware of. Our dahi, our dosas are all formed with the same process. It's an anaerobic cellular process in which the bacteria or the yeast or the microorganisms convert the carbohydrate in our foods into things in which the chemical energy is released and the lactic acid is created, and the bacteria feed on the sugar and starch which are already there in the food. So foods that are, for example, that process is called lactofermentation, where the natural bacteria feed on the sugar and the starch. Now, when this happens, the food creates very beneficial enzymes and omega-3 fatty acids and a lot of probiotic bacterial strains. That is the reason I recommend including them in our day-to-day diet, because of the bioavailability that increases. What do I mean by bioavailability? So if you're looking at a millet, if you ferment the millet, because it gets broken down by the bacteria, it becomes already like a pre-digested form of the millet. So it, in a sense, makes it lighter for you to digest, because there are a whole lot of probiotic bacteria along with the millet that you consume, and that helps our gut to get more populated with the beneficial bacteria. I had a request, Shweta. I'm getting notifications for all the people who are in the waiting room. Can that be disabled for me? Because it's coming up on my PPT. All right. Now, what are the benefits of fermented food? Fermented foods, like I discussed, the enzymes are, activated. The probiotic strains develop. It's also a very safe form of food, despite thinking that, oh, it's actually rotting. It's not really rotting. A fermented food, when made correctly, and to know that it's safe or not, basically, if there is no mold, if there is no fungus on it, it's actually safe. The reason being that we add either salt or apple cider vinegar, or we keep a certain proportion of things to ensure that the harmful bacteria does not multiply. it stays in check, and only the beneficial bacteria thrive. So it's actually very safe if you have followed the process properly. In fact, it's safer to eat, for example, a pickled or a fermented cabbage than it is to eat raw cabbage, because unless it was the safety and the precautions measures were taken, it would not have been a successful ferment. So I hope what you get what I'm saying. If it's a ferment that has fermented nicely, which you will know with the tangy smell and the appearance of the vegetables. So if you see the picture on top, none of the vegetables look brown. None of them look gray. They look a little subdued or lighter in their from their original color, but they still retain their original color, just a lighter version of it. And they don't have any fungus, they don't have any mold on them, which means it was a successful ferment. So you have to use all three senses. Looking at it, does it look fine? Does it smell fine? And then take a little piece and taste it. And if it tastes fine, then all those three check marks are ticked. That means it's safe. It's also a good way of preserving food. So that's another benefit of fermented foods. If you have a little bit of something left over and you know by keeping it in the fridge, it's just going to go bad, you'd rather ferment it and get that benefit of preserving that food. And of course, nutrition, because it increases the nutritive value of the very ingredient that you're fermenting with. So is it safe to eat fermented foods? It's a common question. So properly fermented vegetables are actually safer than raw vegetables, like I mentioned, because raw vegetables could be exposed to pathogens like E. coli on the journey or the way from where it was stored. And the lactic acid bacteria that carries out the fermentation, they are the world's best killer of other bacteria. It ensures that the harmful bacteria cannot survive. So that's why it's safe to eat a well fermented food. That's a key point to remember. It needs to be well fermented. And to incorporate more probiotic foods into your diet and putting these live good for you organisms back in your gut, that's where they belong, and that's what I intend to teach you through this course. At this point, I'm just going to take a quick break from the PPT, and only up to the point that I have shared right now. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. It's great to see you, Aditi, doing a stepper or something while you're listening to me. Yeah, let me see. There are some questions in the chat. The name of my academy is Leaf E Academy. You have arthritis, is fermented foods good for you? That's a very good question. There is a school of thought which believes that if you have arthritis, you must avoid eating very sour things. Yeah. So the quantity that I'm asking you to have is specified in each item. When you take the course, you will see what are the amounts that you're supposed to have. I would say test it on yourself, have a very little quantity and see if you're doing well with it. If you feel your pain or your symptoms worsen, then maybe it's not good for you. But there would be others in the family who could definitely benefit, and you could also under ferment it slightly. Don't wait for it to be extremely sour. You can also, for example, sauerkraut, you can actually take the cabbage, wash it off, and then eat it, and the bacteria will still be there. I don't mean soak it, I mean rinse it off. So if you've got high blood pressure and you can't take too much salt, you can still have sauerkraut. Let me see. There are loads of questions, and I'm going to take all of them actually. So let me do one thing. Now that I know you're all clued in and you are listening, I'm going to save these questions for later and take all of them. Let me continue because I will be covering some of these in my in my PPT. So what is the connection between fermented foods and our gut health is that 70% of our immune system exists in our gut, and how they have a symbiotic relationship is our immune system helps to grow healthy microbes and helps to maintain a stable environment in the gut, and the gut microbiome actually supports the development of immune cells and contributes towards the body's immune responses. So these two go hand in hand, and basically fermented foods just amps up the gut health. Having said that, you're not supposed to go overboard and consume fermented foods like a main dish. Like for example, if you love sauerkraut or you love maybe a kanji, you can't have like a huge bowl of kanji or a huge bowl of sauerkraut. You're still supposed to have it in a small quantity. On the other hand, things like plant-based dahi or ambali, you can have a little bowl full also, because the fermentation time also for them is much shorter. It's just 1 day, and they're not so intense. So the microbial activity also is not as concentrated as in the ones which are 4 days old, 1 week old, 14 days old. So in our gut, we want to have a good balance of the good bacteria and the not so good bacteria. And when this is in check, when this is in the right proportion, our gut is in good shape, or you will have issues like bloating, passing wind, constipation, gastric issues, IBS, all of those things can happen. So, and when it goes out of whack, it's known to be gut dysbiosis. So that's not the state we want to get in. So if you're already in that state, it would be a good idea to start including small quantities of fermented foods. And if you're someone who does not have any of those issues, it's a good way to make sure your gut microbiome has a diversity, because the key is having many strains of bacteria into our system, the beneficial bacteria. So many people might say, oh, I'm used to eating idli, I'm used to eating dahi. Is that enough? Not really. The more variety you have of fermented foods, the more you will get in terms of variety of the microorganisms. And remember, idli batter and dosa batter is cooked. Either it's steamed or it's cooked. So a lot of the microorganisms do not withstand the heat that the batter goes through, which is why it's better to consume more of the fermented foods which I'm teaching in this course, which are raw, because all the microorganisms stay alive. Having said that, idli, dosa are great to have as normal part of food, because they are more easy to digest. They don't count as such as fermented foods from the point of view of colonizing your gut with more gut bacteria. So these are just some examples. Kanji is our own Indian fermented drink from the north, and sauerkraut is an international favorite, and it's considered a superfood. And these and many other items are a part of this course, which Shweta will share with you in a bit. Now the difference between fermentation and pickling. Okay, mostly for fermentation, we do it with salt by making brine. Salt water mix is called a brine, and there's a percentage for this brine, which determines whether it's going to be a ferment or whether it's going to be a pickle. When you ferment, you don't keep the brine very strong. You just keep it at that right level where the beneficial bacteria can thrive and the bad bacteria will not thrive. While with vinegar, it will just make sure everything is not able to thrive. It just keeps it sterile. Okay, so the good bacteria will not be able to thrive. Okay, like it's explained in the third point as well. Encourages good bacteria, while pickling kills all the pathogens and keeps it. It's a good way to just preserve food. It is not a good method to enhance the nutritive value of food. So fermentation adds nutrients, pickling does not. Fermentation is much slower. Pickling is pretty quick. You can do it like mix it today and keep it in the sun and it's ready tomorrow, or it can be instant as well. The flavor of fermentation is very unique, pretty complex, pretty layered. Of course, it depends on your base ingredient of what you've made it, but pickling has a predominantly one flavor which is stronger. Fermented foods are not very stable in terms of shelf life. Once fermentation is done, you need to refrigerate everything. While pickling, because the primary role is to preserve, you can leave it out for as long as a few months, as long as you don't use a wet spoon. Also, in our culture, in India, we use a lot of oil and salt and masala to make pickles. I'm not against pickles completely, as long as we use them in small measures and not, again, like make a meal of them. So what would be great is to include pickles for our cultural, context and for our taste buds which are familiar, but also introduce some fermented foods which are new to us, but I think are the need of the hour because we abuse our gut so much with a lot of the food that we eat that we need the fermented foods to counter that to some extent. And there are certain things which are not in our control, like everyone may not have access to organic food. Everyone may not, we can't control the water we drink, we can't control the stress level sometimes, we can't control the radiation that we are dealing with in terms of our, being surrounded by 4G and now 5G. So all this also has an effect on our gut health. Even the water we drink can impact our gut health. So these things are not in our control. So that's why fermented foods are important. Now, tips of how to add them into your diet. So I like adding them as a side to any food as you would have pickles. So sauerkraut I find is one of those items which are pretty versatile in taste, and you can add that to pretty much any dish, whether it's Indian, continental, Middle Eastern, anything, because it's not so strong in its own flavor. It's just salty. Uh, the second tip I want to share is now the course has 13 plus 2 bonus recipes. It'll get overwhelming if you try to make all of them. Yeah. So make one or two at a time, and the quantities that I've given you in the course are very small. The idea being that you want to be successful at it before you make a larger quantity, because till you get it right, you could make a mistake and it might end up being a bad ferment, and then you don't want to feel bad about wasting all the vegetables or whatever is your base in that recipe. So make one or two at a time and then rotate, make different recipes, and always make small portion sizes for the first time. I use them on top of salads in place of dressing. So, or instead of salt or any other garnish. So like sauerkraut or these lacto fermented vegetables are quite salty. So instead of adding salt or lemon, I just add a few pieces of the lacto fermented vegetables or the sauerkraut, and that takes care of the salt element. Use them in place of other drinks or snacks. So for example, a kombucha or a ginger bug or a kanji, you can have instead of having a sharbat, for example. You get two things at one time. Kombucha is refreshing, it's sweet, on the sweeter side. So you get that feeling of having a nice drink, but with the benefits of the probiotic bacteria. And as a snack, you could use them, like there are some recipes which can be used as dips. You can have the ambali as a breakfast or snack item. So start incorporating them in more ways than one. And these are the tips that you can use. And you can top them on sandwiches or any other healthy junk food. So for example, there's no stopping you from adding it into a burger, adding it into a pizza, adding it into any food that is, which can do with a little bit of saltiness in it. You can just top it on that. Sandwiches are, of course, a great idea as well, open sandwiches. And how to simplify making them at home would be, firstly, the equipment needed for most of these are very, very simple. You just need glass jars and few basic things that we all have at home. There is an equipment list which is there in the course in the beginning itself. So you know what you need to put together before you actually start fermenting. But pick the ones that require minimal equipment, and there are many which require minimal equipment. The second tip is that choose the ones without a starter. So in this course, mainly you need a starter for kombucha, for kefir, and for curd, because it's plant-based curd. Other than that, most of them do not require a starter culture. So which means you can pretty much start today or tomorrow, whenever you sign up for the course. And choosing easy to ones are the lacto fermented ones. You will get that name in the index itself, lacto fermented vegetables. Those are the easiest. And there's a lot of versatility that you can bring into this, because you can work with any vegetables that you have, as long as you follow the formula for the brine method. Like I explained to you, brine is the salt and water mix, and there's a percentage to it. So as long as you take care of the percentage, you can use just about any vegetables that you like. And the options for that are also mentioned in the description of the recipe of each dish. And like I said, use vegetables available at home. You don't need to go out and buy things. Sauerkraut just requires cabbage. It's as simple. Yeah, so it's easy and it's fun and it gives you so many options. In fact, just today somebody sent me a message of the person going pretty overboard and making many fermented things at one time. That's one way to do it, but you can also start with one or two. So that brings me to showing you the video for Ambali. So let me screen share.
So now I'm going to be showing you Ambali. In India, we've got this rich tradition of fermenting a lot of things and including them in our day-to-day life. So I'm going to show you something which, unlike dhokla, idli, dosa, where we actually cook it after fermenting, in this recipe, we'll finish cooking the grain and then fermenting it to get the maximum benefits of all the good bacteria that will develop. So for this, we're going to take any little millet. Little millets, there are proso, barnyard, kodo, there are many kinds, anything except jawar, bajra and ragi for this recipe in the millet family. So what we do is we soak the millet overnight or about 6 to 8 hours, and after it's well soaked, we drain off the water in which the millet was soaked, and then on a low flame we cook the millet with additional water. You could take about double the water to cook the millet in. And after it's cooked, what we're going to do is we're going to add some little extra water so that the consistency becomes more like a gruel after fermentation. And then we leave it aside on the counter by covering it with a cloth while it ferments. Now this can stay for up to 12 to 24 hours. The main thing is that it needs to get a sour taste, and you start noticing bubbles coming into the bowl as the millet ferments. And after it has fermented for about 24 hours or 12 hours, depending on how hot it is where you live, to make it a really yummy dish, what can be done is, on the side, do a bit of tempering. So here I have some onions, some mustard, curry leaves and a little bit of chili. And what I'm going to do is do the tadka, the tempering separately, and then add it to the gruel. Remember, we're not going to heat the gruel, which is now become ambali, by fermenting it. So you don't want to now heat the dish. You will do whatever seasoning you want to do. If there's any lime you want to add, salt that you want to add, you will do it into the ambali directly without heating it. So here I'm going to add a bit of salt. And if there are any vegetables you'd like to add, etc., you do it after the fermentation is over. And in case you do feel like having it warm, then it would be a good idea to double boil this, so the good bacteria can still stay alive. So you can enjoy this dish as a part of your meal or as a snack, and enjoy the probiotics made in our good old Indian fashion. Hope you like this recipe. Do try it out and let me know how it turned out.
Did many people not get to see the video?
Yes, apparently in between the video was not visible. Would it be okay for us to maybe play it again?
Sure, I don't mind. I'll play it again. I'll have to bring back that link. One moment. Yeah. Is it visible so I can play it now? I'm,
So now I'm going to be showing you Ambali. In India, we've got this rich tradition of fermenting a lot of things and including them in our day-to-day life. So I'm going to show you something which, unlike dokla, idli, dosa, where we actually cook it after fermenting, in this recipe, we'll finish cooking the grain and then fermenting it to get the maximum benefits of all the good bacteria that will develop. So for this, we're going to take any little millet. Little millets, there are proso, barnyard, kodo, there are many kinds. Anything except jawar, bajra and ragi for this recipe in the millet family. So what we do is we soak the millet overnight or about 6 to 8 hours, and after it's well soaked, we drain off the water in which the millet was soaked, and then on a low flame we cook the millet with additional water. You could take about double the water to cook the millet in. And after it's cooked, what we're going to do is we're going to add some little extra water so that the consistency becomes more like a gruel after fermentation. And then we leave it aside on the counter by covering it with a cloth while it ferments. Now this can stay for up to 12 to 24 hours. The main thing is that it needs to get a sour taste, and you start noticing bubbles coming into the bowl as the millet ferments. And after it has fermented for about 24 hours or 12 hours, depending on how hot it is where you live, to make it a really yummy dish, what can be done is on the side do a bit of tempering. So here I have some onions, some mustard, curry leaves and a little bit of chili. And what I'm going to do is do the tadka, the tempering separately, and then add it to the gruel. Remember, we're not going to heat the gruel, which is now become ambali, by fermenting it. So you don't want to now heat the dish. You will do whatever seasoning you want to do. If there's any lime you want to add, salt that you want to add, you will do it into the ambali directly without heating it. So here I'm going to add a bit of salt. And if there are any vegetables you'd like to add, etc., you do it after the fermentation is over. And in case you do feel like having it warm, then it would be a good idea to double boil this so the good bacteria can still stay alive. So you can enjoy this dish as a part of your meal or as a snack and enjoy the probiotics made in our good old Indian fashion. Hope you like this recipe. Do try it out and let me know how it turned out.
I hope it was better this time.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. I do want to take questions now. Let me just go back to the PPT and see if I wanted to share anything else. You're going to give an overview of the course, Shweta,
Yes.
and then I have to do the Q&A.
Yeah.
So let me just, so I look forward to having you on board for the Fun with Fermented Food course. And because I'm going to close my PPT, just wanted to let you know that I'm there on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, etc. as Vanita Contractor. Please follow to get lots of tips, videos, information. This is my office number. If any of you would like to reach out to me regarding my upcoming juice cleanse or one-on-one consultation with me, this is my email address and my website. So you could take a screenshot of this and use it at some point later. And I'm going to stop screen share, let Shweta take you through the course, and then I will answer all the Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Vinita. I will share my screen, which has details about the e-learning course. And of course, please feel free to share your inputs on the course.
Yes.
So this is about the Fun with Fermented Foods course, which is curated by Vinita. As you would have seen and gauged from Vinita's presentation also, so fermented foods, yeah, we understand, we are aware that fermented foods are good for gut health and overall health. But yeah, sometimes, we don't know where to start, how to incorporate, if it goes bad, what to do. So all those concerns are taken care of in this course, which is a very detailed and a comprehensive course. So there are 16 video lectures and there are recipe videos. And from what equipment to use, how to, the stepwise instructions, troubleshooting tips, hacks, and even for starters, where required, Vinita has shared vendor details as well. So this is like I think, from beginning to end, and a very comprehensive course where we have Indian as well as global fermented food recipes that are included in this course. Since it's an e-learning course, it is you can access it very conveniently on your mobile or on your computer, and you get a free recipe ebook which can be downloaded for future reference, and access to the courses for 120 days. During that duration, you can access the video, the recipe videos, the concept videos, and of course, Vinita is there for Q&A support. She's very prompt in responding to all the queries that you may have regarding the recipes. And yeah, you get a course completion certificate once you are through with the course, and there is an assessment that you need to complete, post which you get a course completion certificate for the course as well. And this is just like, maybe a overview of what is included in the course in terms of concepts, knowledge, and recipes. Maybe I'll have this screen or slide on for some time before I move on to the next one.
I would suggest move on to the number of recipes, because on this page there are 6. I'll just run through what is covered, what is fermentation, what do we know about fermentation and what we don't, why fermented foods and connection to gut health, a lot of which I've spoken today, but you'll have a lot more reading material, do's and don'ts, troubleshooting tips, because a lot of people are stumped as to what do I do when this happens, what do I do when that happens. All of that has been answered because of so much experience doing it myself, and so many people have already done the course. I don't know, Shweta, if you can quickly give them a number of how many people have already done this course via WellCure. And so there are fermented beverages, fermented vegetables, and everyday recipes. So we have a total of 16 recipes in this e-course. So pretty much most of the concerns or most of the common issues that come are covered in the troubleshooting guide. And I see the chat is buzzing with lots of questions. Let me know when you're done with the course overview, Shweta, then I can start taking questions.
Yeah, sure, Vinita. I'll just take maybe another minute to.
Yeah.
So I am happy to share with you all that we have the special offer on this course, which was originally priced at 1698, but you get a 25% off, which is like, of course, a limited period offer, for the participants of this session. And you can scan this QR code on your screen. We will also be sharing the payment link in the chat box. And at the time of payment, if you use this code Vinita25, you get to pay the discounted amount, which is rupees 1273 for this course. So definitely would recommend you to grab this offer. And as Vinita shared, many people have already completed this course with great reviews. I'm personally handling comments and feedback from people, and definitely one of the best rated courses on WellCure. So please make the best of this offer. And so Vinita, I'll have the screen on while you can take questions.
Yes, because I can see people are also leaving, so I don't want people to miss out on the answers. Yes, so I'm going to start right from the beginning of this session about all your queries. Okay.
You want me to
Video.
read out the questions to you?
No, I think I'll just go through them. It's
Okay.
easier for me to do that. Okay, the one question I answered was about arthritis, then how to ferment food properly, that will be taught during the course. Can we ferment non-seasonal food like cabbage? So if you mean that, can you ferment things which are not in season right now which are in season now so that you can have them when they are not available? Yes. Cabbage is pretty much available right through the year. So basically you can ferment at any time with whatever produce you have. What's the best time to consume fermented foods? I would say with like lunch onwards. I wouldn't recommend having it first thing, in the first half of the day, because at that time the body is cleansing and you want to not have something very sour. It's better to have it with a meal, or if it's a sweetish drink, then you can have it latest by 5, 6 in the evening, because again, you don't want too much sugar going into your system. How can a vegetable be fermented? So that's how the lacto fermentation process helps you to ferment vegetables, which is taught in the course. Fermented food, is it allowed to a person with hyperacidity? So sometimes it can aggravate if you're not careful. So I would say starting with small quantities is something you should try. I think it would also be a good idea to check why you are getting acidity in the first place. If you switch to more of a plant-based diet, include more fruits and vegetables, eating fruits on an empty stomach, cutting down on dairy, cutting down on tea and coffee, getting your sleep in order, that would help reduce your acidity. All vegetables can be fermented. Though pretty much all can be. It's a different thing whether you may or may not like the taste. The ones which are more water rich, like for example, a carrot is more starchy, while say lauki is more water rich. So whenever, or a cucumber is more water rich. So when a vegetable is more water rich, the brine, the percentage of salt is altered, because the vegetable which is more water rich will release a lot more water, diluting the salt in the brine. So to account for that, you already preempt it and adjust the brine accordingly. And this is mentioned in the formula, keeping in mind how to ferment different vegetables, and it's there in the course. How to include them in the Indian diet, I shared it with you. Eat, make more versatile kind of um, fermented foods like sauerkraut. Though it's not Indian, it goes with the Indian food because it's very mild. And ambali is anyway Indian, kanji is anyway Indian. Can I have fermented food and acidity issues? I just explained that. I have uric acid tendency. Um, so I think it'll be more important to first fix that and then start having it in small quantities. I have migraine and it gets triggered with fermented foods such as dosa. Is it okay for me to have fermented food? Um, it's difficult to say whether it's linked to that or not. Maybe it could be a coincidence. But I would say to attempt that, maybe start with dahi, because that's pretty good for the stomach and mild, and then move on to things like ambali, and then move on to maybe a sauerkraut. The best way to know if something works for you is to try it at the same time each time. Don't change it at different times. I mean, have it at different times. Have little bit and know your body will speak to you. Remember, this is not like, how do I put it? This is not some chemical that you're ingesting, or this is not some artificial thing that you're consuming. It's only food. So it can't like affect you so badly. That's why I have small quantities. Does it help with vitiligo? Not directly. We don't have fermented food in our culture. No, your Vandana, you'll be surprised. Every state in India has its own fermented food, whether it's Madhya Pradesh, whether it's Orissa, whether it's Maharashtra, whether it's Tamil Nadu, all of them have fermented foods. The simplest is fermenting rice. They keep the rice out overnight with water and then they eat that in the morning. There are many kinds of indigenous fermented foods in India. Can we eat idli batter more than 2 days old? That's not in the scope of this course, but I'll still answer it. That idli batter will start getting over fermented, and it's not such a good idea to eat idli batter which is beyond a certain, within the day or two, because the microbial growth after a point will not continue, and then it's just getting more and more acidic, or it's getting the bacteria dying, so there's no point. Is Indian kanji with black carrots and beetroot a probiotic rich fermented food? Absolutely, and that's what is taught in the course. Explain about weight loss program. Is it all using fermented food? No, I don't know which weight loss program you're talking about, but fermented foods is one of the things to be included in our diet. That's not the only thing. How to introduce in Crohn's or colitis child? That would require a little bit of history and studying the person's condition before I can comment on that. Per day, how much fermented food ideally? Like we eat idli, pickle, ginger ale in the same day, then how will it be more? How much will be more? So idli dosa I will not count as a fermented food from the point of view of what you are asking, because that's getting cooked. So you can't overdose in terms of microorganisms in that. In terms of the fermented foods in this course, each of these items, the quantity is mentioned in under each recipe. So it will be difficult for me to share about all 16 of them. But if you sign up for the course, you'll get to know how much you can eat of each of the fermented foods. For someone with thyroid or hormonal imbalance, is it safe to consume fermented food? So you can avoid things like cabbage, but you can definitely consume lacto-fermented vegetables, not a problem. So fermented foods has to be avoided for you, Meenal, because your doctor has advised you. Then you shouldn't, because I wouldn't be able to comment without knowing more about your condition. But you could definitely have your family benefit from it and having small doses of that. There is a direct link between consuming fermented food and immunity. I have seen a big difference in my own immunity after I started regularly having fermented foods. This cold that I have today, I've got after 2 years. Is sauerkraut local to Indian diet? No, it's from Germany. So there's a mix of Indian and international fermented foods in this course. So I'm not teaching sourdough bread in this course. Fermented foods, so I've answered this. For diabetics, you can have fermented foods. You should avoid the ones which contain any form of sugar, or ferment it much more so that the sugar is completely eaten up by the microorganisms. Have you helped anyone with osteoporosis? Yes, I can work with somebody with osteoporosis in my one-on-one coaching. How can we consume for gut cleaning? So cleaning the gut would mean, eating clean, reducing packaged food, reducing refined sugar, eating, not consuming things like antacids, antibiotics. So it's about what you can do and what you have to add. Both things are required. Can we eat overnight soaked rice on a daily basis in the next morning along with some curd and a little pickle? So firstly, I believe in eating more of fruit in the morning, or a simple thing in the morning. After that, you can definitely have the soaked rice as a fermented thing. But I definitely feel that the more variety you have in your breakfast or any meal is better. Having the same thing every day is not necessarily the best thing, because we have so many grains that we can benefit from. Why restrict ourselves only to rice? And I presume you're talking about plant-based dahi, and pickle is not such a good idea on a daily basis if you're thinking of having it, because like I said, lots of oil, lots of masala. You can have fermented rice or millet on a rotational basis. I answered about diabetic. Rice fermentation can be taken as main food. Yes, if it suits you, but don't only eat the fermented rice as your main course. Continue having your dal or a source of protein. Please have vegetables also along with it and salad. I don't teach or prescribe to milk kefir, so I can't say anything about that. A very interesting question, Lena. Pickles in earlier days were not made with vinegar. So if the pickles are made without vinegar, does it still have the good bacteria? That depends on how much salt has been added. So if it's not vinegar, it has to be salt. So if you add salt beyond a certain proportion, it will only preserve. So it will not have the good bacteria. It will be sterile. If the salt content is enough where it keeps the bad bacteria away and lets the good bacteria multiply, then it's a fermented dish, not a pickle. Where to buy starters are all mentioned in the course. Like I said, only for kombucha and kefir you need starters. Where to find the course registration has been done. Thank you, Swati. Sauerkraut safe to consume by someone with hypothyroidism. I will need to look at other parameters. By and large, people say avoid eating cabbage for thyroid. But honestly, there are so many other things one should also avoid for thyroid, which people don't do, and they blame the poor cabbage. So it needs to be looked at in a complete way. Okay, so all the questions about video has been sorted because we played it. Gurvinder, if you're still here, let me know if it's clear now after I've repeated it. Which millet have I used? I don't remember because the video was shot long ago, but it was a little millet. So it could be Proso, Foxtail, or Barnyard. Okay, so Poonam, your question is what different things can be added for fermentation to be able to get a variety of microbial flora? We usually add mustard powder, salt, and a pinch of sugar and some vegetables like carrot or beetroot. So all these are wild ferments, means whatever is in the environment that kind of gets into the ferment, and you are not actually introducing a set starter to it. So if you want to get a variety, you can definitely add different vegetables. So the vegetables itself give you the different microbial flora, but also using different recipes, not only lacto-fermented vegetables. So in Karnataka, ragi ambali is made, and you said not to use ragi. So that recipe is a little different. That is made with curd, which is not plant-based curd, and they use ragi flour, not whole ragi. That's a different recipe, and you can follow that as well if you're doing it that way. Ragi and jawar and bajra have bigger grains, so which is why I'm not using it for this recipe. How do we know it's fermented? Like I shared, it has to do with the smell, taste, and how it appears. You will get a troubleshooting guide when you join the course. Bubbling is a sign of it fermenting, but sometimes when it has gone bad, also it can bubble. So how to look for mold, how to know how it's smelling and how it's tasting will be a more sure shot guide. You're not supposed to use the water in which it is soaked, correct? Can you heat it in the microwave? No, because microwave will not let the microorganisms survive. Should we use the water while soaking rajma? No. How do we include these recipes for kids? So use the dips for kids, use the drinks for the kids, use the dahi and cheese for the kids. Even sauerkraut, I give my kids sauerkraut. The more quickly in life you get them accustomed to this very unique and almost peculiar taste of fermented foods, the more easily they will adapt to it. I think many of these questions have been answered. Sourdough is not included. How do we ensure that the fungus doesn't form? Follow the recipe and the guidelines to the T. Do we have vegan recipes? Yes, they're all completely plant-based. Can we refrigerate and can we consume straight from the fridge? Yes. If you're somebody who's very sensitive to cold things, then you may want to take it out of the fridge, remove how much quantity you want so that it comes to a room temperature and then consume. Wine making is not included. Someone with high BP can wash away the excess water and salt and then consume. Low BP you can have, share the course syllabus has been done. How does it help with weight loss or weight management? It's because when you make your gut flora more diverse and you increase the number of good bacteria in your gut, you digest better, leading to less time, the food being in your system for lesser time, which reduces bloating, helps quick elimination, and it helps with reducing toxicity, which in turn helps with weight loss. And it also keeps your cravings for sweet things less, because what we are doing is the good microbiome does not allow the candida, which is the not so good bacteria, to thrive. So if your good bacteria is more, the bacteria like candida, which keep on asking for more sugar, get outnumbered, and that indirectly or even directly helps with weight management. Kanji is a fermented dish made with carrots and cabbage, and it's a drink. Ambali is a dish made out of fermented millet. Curd should ideally be consumed in the day, not in the evening. Ambali you can have as breakfast. What is the average time in terms of hours for fermenting any food? So that really depends on the dish. There's no standard time. Temperature for fermentation depends again on the dish. It will ferment faster when it's hot. It will take longer to ferment when it's cold. Can they give recovery from vaginal yeast infection? Not directly, but it can help. Are they cold in nature? Can they be had by someone who is prone to having a cold allergy? If you keep them out of the fridge, like I mentioned, you can have them, and you can have things like kanji in which heaty ingredients are used, like mustard and chili powder. That will help clear the nasal passages, but avoid having them straight out of the fridge. Can gluten allergic people have fermented foods? Yes, because we are not doing anything with gluten in this course. Can children be served? Yes. Dilute and give them in small quantities. Is it good for psoriasis? Yes. Can you tell me more about your one-on-one coaching? I would be happy to. You have my number. You can also take a look at my coaching programs on my website, vinitacontractor.com. Should we buy extra ingredients for the course or make the recipe items with the ingredients available at home? So for many of them, you'll be able to do with the ingredients at home. Few specific ones you might need to buy certain ingredients, but go with the ones that you have at home. Are people still there? Because I just keep talking. Vandana, you're frozen. I need to see everybody here. Okay, there's still quite a few people here. How much do I charge one-on-one? So it depends on the period that the person chooses to work with me. It ranges from 1 hour to 1 month to 3 months to even more. Private diet consultations for Crohn patients, yes. Can we prepare them at night time? Yes. What is a good vegan starter? You could take the probiotic tablets called VSL number 3, or you can buy them from Urban Platter. Are pickles and fermented prebiotics? No, they are probiotics. Is fermented food safe in case of flatulence and bloating? You need to address why you're getting the flatulence and bloating. The fermented food itself will not cure it. It will aid it once you start taking steps to rectify why you're getting flatulence and bloating. Thank you, Meera, for subscribing to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is also Vinita Contractor. So those of you who like, you can subscribe. Quinoa is good. What is the question? What about quinoa? Can we use rice that is made in rice cooker for fermenting? Yes. Is vegan cheese also fermented food? If it's made the way I've taught you in the course. If it's a ready-made one bought from a packet, then it's not a fermented food. Are fermented foods alkaline in nature? They are not alkaline in nature. They're actually acidic in nature outside, but in the body, they have an alkalizing effect. Okay, I think I've answered most of these. Yes, I've finished with all the questions. Right, Shweta? So will alter the acidic pH of the body. To some extent, yes. So let's understand that now, for example, you are someone with a pH which is slightly acidic. Okay. So when you have a fermented food, it takes care of itself in terms of that item. For example, you have mukhalal. Now, mukhalal is acidic in nature, but when you eat it, it becomes alkaline. It will affect it, like how it is treated in the body for itself, like how would mukhalal become in the body. But if you already have an acidic tendency, it's not going to undo that. It might have a like a residual effect for some time, but you need to fix what is creating the acidic effect in your body. What are the acidic foods or the acidic inducing lifestyle, and that will help. Do I teach vegan cheese? I don't have a full-on vegan cheese course. A very simple reason why I don't teach vegan cheese is because a lot of the cheese recipes require a lot of thickeners, a lot of xanthan gum, or arrowroot powder and things which are pretty refined. And many of them, in the pursuit of trying to mimic the exact cheese, the health kind of takes a back seat. So I prefer a very simple vegan cheese, which is fermented cashew, and at home that's what we have. I pretty much make all the dishes which require cheese with that, and that's what I teach. I keep it pretty simple. Great, Aditi, you signed up already earlier this week. Great. Do you have a YouTube channel of how to make curd that is fermented the right way? Yes, it's there on my YouTube channel. It would be great if people could follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and it would quickly put it down on the chat when you do follow me. It just feels good to be connected to more people. What time are we at? Oh, we're at 7:10. We're supposed to end at 7. Shweta, I'm done with all the questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vinita, for taking those questions so patiently and for this very insightful session. And I mean, I can make out from the inputs that are coming in the chat box that people felt really engaged throughout the session. I would also like to take a minute, when about this question that somebody put regarding cheese. So Vinita has also curated a dairy-free course where we have plant-based alternatives for milk, ghee, butter, and many more recipes which are covered in that course. Plus, there is another plant-based recipe course, which is plant-based Indian recipes, again curated by Vinita. So these are the other two courses which we also have on our e-learning platform. Anyone who's interested can get in touch with our team for details on these courses. And like I mentioned, avail of this 25% off limited period offer. This code will be valid. It will work till tomorrow midnight for all the enrollments till tomorrow midnight. So I request you to register for the course if you wish to. And with that, I think we are good to conclude the session. Thank you so much, Vinita, once again.
I think I'll take this one question because two people have asked it.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for waiting patiently. So the question was, what is prebiotics and probiotics? That's the one I want to answer. And there was a quick one about can kombucha be kept out? Last two questions, okay?
Okay.
If you want to still chat with me, DM me or message me on my office number. So kombucha, while it is getting fermented, has to be kept out. After it is fermented, you have to put it in the fridge like any other ferment because otherwise it will continue to ferment. Okay, so it can't be kept out. And prebiotics is the food for the bacteria that is already there. So what are prebiotics? They are things with a lot of fiber. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains like brown rice, like garlic, onions, chicory root. These are known to be high in fiber and great as prebiotic foods. Probiotics, on the other hand, are already with the good bacteria. So they are colonizing or populating the gut with good bacteria. So prebiotics is food for the probiotic bacteria already in the gut. And if you eat a well-balanced, fiber-rich, clean diet, you don't have to separately eat for prebiotics. Probiotics, on the other hand, we have to consciously do something to make sure that the number of good bacteria increase. Okay. All right, that's it. And thank you very much for people who have bought the course, who plan to buy the course, or just for attending. Good to see all of you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Vinita. Thank you once
Some
again.
people want to know the dairy-free course. Can you share it over here? People who want can continue to see it, or you can share it with them directly.
I have shared the course syllabus for the dairy-free course also, and more details we'll put in the group as well.
All right. The dates for the course are up to you. Once you sign up, you can do them when you like. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Vinita. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.